Therefore, let us rejoice once again in the words of our Lord, who promised, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." And of course, that's John 14, verse 27. And that finishes last week, and I'm sorry I couldn't do it then. I just didn't want to keep you all locked in your seats. Now, this one I'm excited about. This lesson took me a long time to do. If it has a title, I'd give it 3. The son of perdition, the man of sin, and the lawless one, which the Apostle Paul, we're fixing to see, uses all 3 names in 2 verses to represent the lawless one. Anyway, in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 through 8, that's where I'm going to be most of the morning. Every now and then we'll go to verse 9 and 10, but for the most part we're going to be 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 through 8. Everything needed for this information is mostly right there. I do go elsewhere, but mostly right there. So 2 Thessalonians 2, 3 through 8, verse 3 and verse 8 in this first one. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition. And then the lawless one will be revealed, who the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. From verse 3, the word sin is taken from the word anomai. It means without law or lawless. It is not used, and nor is it ever used in God's word when you're talking about someone committing one sin. This is someone who constantly practices evil. 1 John chapter 3, verse 4 tells us that sin is lawlessness. And I think I've said that every week that I've stood up here, but it just keeps coming to me here. In the same way, Paul also referred to him as the son of perdition. The word perdition is translated from a word meaning destruction, and it means the complete spiritual ruin of an individual. Who comes to your mind when you hear that? The complete spiritual ruin of an individual. Judas came to mind immediately. I mean, I know there's a lot of other people in the Bible that could have, but he popped in there first to me. John 17:17 tells us, "While I was with them in the world, I kept them in your name. Those whom you gave me I have kept, and none of them is lost, except the son of perdition, that the scriptures might be fulfilled." Paul also referred to him as the lawless one in verse 8. The word lawless is translated from the word anomos, meaning without law, and referred to the flagrant defiance of the known will of God. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 8, 2 Peter 2, verse 8 says, "A righteous man dwelleth among them, tormented his righteous soul from day to day by seeing and hearing their lawless deeds." The Apostle Paul tells his readers, in an effort to assist them and us in our understanding of the spiritual antagonist or enemy, depending on your version, helps us to identify several obvious characteristics of the son of perdition as follows. And I've got 6. They're all on one page. It's not that much. First, blatant opposition towards God and his revealed will. And that obviously is in verse 4. The word transformed, opposed, is used elsewhere in the New Testament. And I've got them here, but we don't need them, I don't think. To identify an enemy They're used elsewhere in the New Testament to identify an enemy or an opponent. Luke 21, verse 15, "For I will give you a mouth and wisdom which all of your adversaries will not be able to contradict or oppose." In Philippians chapter 1, verse 28, Philippians 1, verse 28, "And not in any way terrified by your adversaries, which is to them a proof of perdition, but to you of salvation, and that from God." Now, another obvious characteristics of the son of perdition is unashamed exhortation of himself against God, an arrogant attempt for total preeminence. That's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4. Unbridled arrogance to take his seat in the temple of God. I spent weeks on this one sentence. I am convinced it is a symbolic reference to the Lord's church. Verses for me to go over here, but I proved it to myself. And of course, this is also 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4. Now in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 16 and 17. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 16 and 17. "Nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away." Verse 17. "Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty." Number 4, a fearless display of himself as God. And of course, like I say, these are obvious characteristics of the son of perdition. Number 5 is a fearless display of himself. Oh, that's right, I've already said that. Number 4, fearless display of himself as God. And 5, literal personification of sin, the lawless one. Once again, seen in verse 4. Now, number 6, willingness to be Satan's vehicle to deceive God's children, even through the deception of wickedness by using counterfeit signs and wonders and powers. And this is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 9 and 10. I told y'all we'd get there. And then I've got verses 9 and 10 here. This is verse 9 of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. "The coming of the lawless one is occurring to the working of Satan with all powers, signs, and lying wonders." Verse 10, "And with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth that they might be saved." As did the Apostle Paul, let us look at the when, the how, and the why this being would come. By the way, I started this lesson months ago in my mind knowing that the son of perdition was Satan. Well, I proved that wrong. I'll guarantee I proved that wrong in just a moment. And some other things that I've came across online, obviously, and history books in my own home, I've proved some of them mistaking as well, just by a couple of different chapters that they had tried to mislead people, or they could mislead you if you didn't study God's Word. Anyway, Paul assured the Thessalonican church that the son of perdition would not come until after the falling away. That's very important in and of itself. These are obviously, English was my worst class, but doesn't the falling away, doesn't the word the mean specifically that it was one time? Anyway, a particular instance, would not come until after the falling away, and Jesus would not return until after the falling away. That's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3. Let's look at 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1. Now the Spirit expressly says that in later times some will depart from the faith, giving heed. I couldn't write that without putting Hebrews 3:12, because they're just locked together like a chain and a lock. Beware, brethren, lest there be any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. And the phrase falling away is translated from the word apostasy, apostasa, which is where we get our English word apostasy, meaning to defeat, to defect from the truth or the faith, or to oppose, as in a military or political rebellion. Y'all have never seen any political rebellions, have you? Sorry, just a few months ago. I'm still not over it. Second, Paul warned the Thessalonican church that the son of perdition would come in accordance with the power of Satan, manifesting a false power and counterfeit signs and wonders. That's in verse 9 of 2 Thessalonians 2. The expressions sign and wonders are the same words used to describe the miraculous activity of Jesus and his apostles in Acts chapter 2, verse 22. Hear these words: Jesus of Nazareth, a man attested by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs which God did through him in your midst, as you yourself also know. However, Jesus, during his earthly ministry, had warned his disciples that false Christ and false prophets would come, claiming the ability to perform miraculous acts in an attempt to mislead God's elect. Not the ones that come once a month, but the elect. That scared me to death. Anyway, it's an attempt, obviously, to mislead the most Christ-like person that you're going to come across. And that's in Matthew 24:24. Y'all can do some home study, I guess. Third, Paul warned the son of perdition's objective was to deceive God's children. That is obviously found in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 10. The Apostle Paul warned the Thessalonican church about the son of perdition, concluded by identifying how heaven would respond towards the son of perdition and those who fell prey to his efforts. Paul warned that those who chose to follow the man of sin's influence, would be allowed to believe what was false. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11. And for this cause God shall send strong delusions that they should believe a lie. Paul warned that those who by choice fell victim to the son of perdition's lies would be judged by God. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 11 and 12. Paul announced that Jesus, when he returns, would destroy or slay, depending on your versions, mine had both, the lawless one with the breath of his mouth. 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 7 and 8. Comparing the man of sin and Jesus Christ. Just something fun I did. The man of sin is the son of perdition. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3. While Jesus is the Prince of Life. In the book of Acts, chapter 3, verses 14 and 15. I've got 3 other locations here in Acts, but this will be fine. Acts chapter 3, verses 14 and 15. Coming is in conjunction with the working of Satan. It's in verse 9. While Jesus' coming is in conjunction with God's divine purpose. It's in verse 8. Both have a coming seen in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, one in verse 8 and one in verse 9. You can see them both coming right there together. Of course, we're more excited about one than the other. It is suggested by some that the son of perdition is a reference to either the Roman Empire or one of the many persecuting blasphemous emperors. A bunch of names here, but there's no need. To support this conclusion, the Apostle Paul wrote the epistle in cryptic or symbolic language to avoid any governmental notice. And many emperors claimed deity and demanded worship from the Roman people. The only 2 I'm going to tell you is the worst 2, and that's Nero and Domitian. There was a lot more, but those are the worst. However, if we study the context of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, we will note that this possibility is in error, because the man of sin was to be present and active, waging his opposition against God's people when Jesus returns. That's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 5 through 8. And I've got them right here. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things. And now you know what withholdingly that he might be revealed in his time. Verse 7. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And verse 8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. And the Roman Empire and its emperors have all faded into the pages of history without the events predicted in the context taking place. So I can promise you, obviously, that they are not the one called the son of perdition. It is suggested that the falling away that is to precede the son of perdition, that's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3, is the Roman Catholic Church. I've also read that at my house. And the man of sin, or the son of perdition, is the papacy, or the Pope. Those who believe this view say 5 different things here. The falling away germinated from within the church. The third, the church makes claims of miraculous miracles being performed by saints. 4th, the Pope exalts himself against God and Jesus as the substitute of Jesus Christ on earth today. 5th, the Pope sits in the temple of God and claims supreme authority. In the church, the restraining power was the Roman government. And when it fell, the Roman bishop or pope seized power, maintaining it all the way till today. The leaders of the Protestant Reformation movement identified the Pope as the son of perdition. However, such conclusions, while intriguing, do not completely fit the context of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 2 through 11. Anyway, the Pope, while religiously wrong, does believe that Jesus is the Christ. There are many antichrist or lawless ones, a bunch. 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. 1 John chapter 2, verses 18 says, "Little children, It is the last time. And as you have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now are. There are many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. The system of the Pope's infallibility is limited to specific areas. The restraining power is not a political system, but the omnipotence of Jesus Christ. That's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 5 through 8. And this is the last group that I found any kind of history on at all that I could reference and prove anyway incorrect, but y'all will see that. It is said by some that the falling away is a reference to the high priest or the system of Judaism or the Jewish state. To support this view, it is thought, never mind. The word translated perdition is used in John 17, verses 12. Is Jesus saying, I only lost one, the son of perdition? Revelation chapter 2, verses 9. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, right by the verses that we all know. I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, all referring to the same person, people, or system. And the proponents of the damnable heresies of 2 Peter chapter 2, the whole thing, are in fact Judaizing teachers. Excuse me. Men living in the first century have all died, and yet the son of perdition is still restrained. The suggestion that the word perdition is synonymous with Judas, the son of the devil, and others is forcing a definition that cannot be sustained, and the system of Judaism cannot be defended as the falling away, because it was in existence prior to the church. Some people are sure that the son of perdition is the devil himself. That's what I said I was when I started this lesson. I do not today. Anyway, to back up this conclusion, it is set forth that the devil was working behind the scenes during Paul's ministry and included the reference to the mystery of lawlessness. The devil's work will be destroyed and his identity revealed when Jesus returns. In Revelation chapter 20 teaches considerably about that very thing. When Paul reveals the son of perdition is what is known, what Paul reveals about the son of perdition is what is known about the devil from other biblical texts. However, that conclusion cannot be shown accurate due to the text suggests that the son of perdition's coming is in conjunction with Satan's activities. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 8 through 10. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. Verse 9. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth that they might be saved. And is in no way an attempt to identify the devil, and this idea would allow the devil unobstructed freedom, which is a total contradiction of heaven's revelation. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13 wipes that thought out. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. But with that temptation will also make the way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 4. For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved for judgment. Now it is understood that the son of perdition is a reference to any and all religious error that will come about throughout time. As support for this conclusion, it is suggested that the presence of the man of sin satisfies a lot of possibilities, including any religious movement or institution or system or any historical character. 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. It's a beautiful verse. 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. Little children, it is the last hour. And as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come, by which we know that it is the last hour. This verse suggests that there are many Antichrists. The term Antichrist is understood to be synonymous with the man of sin, or the son of perdition, and consequently cannot be limited to one specific identity. The second coming of Jesus has not taken place because the events of the context has not happened. While a lot of possibilities exist as to the identity of the man of sin, it seems very possible that the son of perdition is a reference to any and all false teaching and religious error that has or is or will later exist. That conclusion supports the belief of the Bible for every generation, preparing it for the son of perdition. And I'm out of time. Oh, no, I do have more. I'm sorry. Oh, no, I've already done this. So I'm out of time. Thank y'all for your attention. And looks like we have a little bit of extra time here.